Zoom participants, and I want to welcome the people here in the office. I'm Ellen Menshew, the chair of the Clallam County Democrats, and we're happy to have with us in person this evening Representative Adam Bernbaum, our current representative in Olympia for the 24th LD, and a challenger is here with us, Aiden Hamilton, and we have joining us on Zoom another candidate, Eric Pratt, and we're glad that Eric could join us via Zoom this evening. Just to remind the people in the audience to please, if you have a question, write your question down on a card and we will have someone pick it up and we'll get through questions. We'll start with pre-submitted questions. We'll go to Zoom questions. Those on Zoom, if you'll put your questions in the chat, we'll be monitoring those throughout the program. And then we'll go to the audience question. We have 2-minute opening for each candidate and a 1-minute rebuttal. We'll go right to questions, 90 seconds for an answer on each question. And then we'll have a 2-minute close. So welcome everyone. And I'm glad that I want to welcome Norma Turner as our moderator this evening. And Christy Holy is our timer. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Norma to give a rundown on what she would like from the participants.
Okay, so here you're saying do you want 90 seconds or 2 minutes? What were the instructions you sent out?
Oh, they're 90 seconds.
Oh, and they're on the rules.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Ellen and I always have to make sure we're on the same rule page because usually I'm on another page. She has to bring me back to the real one. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming. And thank you, candidates, not only for being here, but being willing to run for office. It is not an easy thing to do. And I think it's the basic tenet of democracy is that voters get to have a choice. So when there's more people, there's more choices. So what we will be doing is starting out, we're just going to go in alphabetical order to start with. And your introductory statement will be 2 minutes. And then after those have all been given, each person can do a rebuttal if you want. If you've heard something that you disagree with or want to clarify, that will be the only time that we'll have rebuttals. And I calculate out, and if all goes smoothly, there's an opportunity for 14 questions. So we have several. Okay, so we're going to start with Adam Bernbaum, and then be sure to watch the timer here, so I'll warn you. And then it'll be Aiden, and then it'll be Eric. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's good to see everyone this evening. My name's Adam Bernbaum. I'm your current state representative, and I'm happy to be with you all this evening. I'm going to start off just by thanking the folks who are organizing this forum. I know it takes a ton of work, so thank you, Norma, Christy, Ellen. It's a big effort, and it's something that I benefit from, and I think that the public benefits from. I'm going to just give you all a rundown of some of the things that I've been working on over the last couple of years, and then talk about a couple of things that I'm going to be working on next year. So in my first term, I passed 6 bills into law. These included legislation to help build more affordable housing in rural communities, a permit appeal reform bill to make it easier for us to do economic development, legislation. There's a couple of government efficiency bills. One of them increased efficiency at the Department of Revenue, another one that increases efficiency at the Department of Licensing. I passed a bill that made it easier for us to have prescribed burns, which keeps our communities safe from wildfire. And then another small government efficiency bill that increases access to childcare by removing a regulation that was making it challenging for people to utilize all the available spots. I also worked on appropriations for our community. I helped secure funding to expand the sewer line in East Port Angeles, to reopen the Hoe Road, which washed out at the beginning of 2025, to help Jefferson Healthcare with low volume labor and delivery services, and secured funding for the US 12 rail grade separation, which is important for the Port of Grace Harbor. But I know there's still so much more to do. The cost of groceries are too high. The cost of housing is too high. Too many people don't have access to healthcare, and we live in divisive political times. One thing that I love about local politics is that the issues that we have to work on, these aren't Democratic or Republican issues. These are community issues. Everybody needs to have affordable housing. We all want to have a strong economy. We all want clean air and clean water. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work on those issues with you. And I'm open to, of course, I'm open to answering your questions. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions this evening. So thank you.
Okay, Aiden, you're next.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I appreciate your time. As stated, my name is Aiden Hamilton, and I'm running against Adam Bernbaum. And so the reason I've chosen to run for the legislature is because, in truth, I'm scared. I'm scared of what I'm seeing in our community and what I've become familiar with. When I'm talking with many of whom I consider to be my peers, what I see is that people, when they're talking about what they plan to do, they don't plan on moving to another place in the state, because sometimes you don't get to stay where you grow up. That's kind of just a part of life sometimes. But they're not talking about moving to Seattle for opportunity. They're talking about leaving the state with no plans to ever return. And this is something becoming increasingly familiar to me and to other people. And that's becoming a great concern to me. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to run for the state legislature. One of the things I think I bring to the table is a unique perspective that's very rare and unseen in Olympia. I'm a uniquely young candidate to run for the state legislature, which I'm sure will be brought up later today. And so that's part of everything that I wanted to bring up. When it comes to education, that's a concern of mine. That was part of what also drove me into running for the state legislature. I came from our local public schools, a lifelong student of the Port Angeles School District. And so that is another thing that partially drove me into running for the state legislature, alongside two other key issues to myself: the increasing taxes in our state and increasing housing affordability. So with that, I just want to jump right into questions. So I see that I have a little extra time, but I'll just give it back.
Thank you. And so Eric, you're next. And so Eric, can you see the timer? Or do you want us to just? I want
I can, if you signal me, I can hold it up when you tell me to.
Eric,
I can just go back there.
Okay.
are you on mute?
He is, he's.
You have to unmute. There, all right, so, we have a timer here, but I don't think you can see the time cards. So how do we want to do that?
Here, do you want to take my spot? And I'm gonna go grab a glass of water really quick, and then I'll reprise my spot after these questions. Okay.
Thank you for being flexible. Okay, so Christy, can you hold up can you see that, Eric?
I
Okay,
can.
so-
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, okay, so you can put it down. You do have 2 minutes. So we'll hold up and you'll get a 1 minute sign and a 30-second sign, and then you're done sign. Okay? So you have 2
All
minutes.
right.
All right, so go for it.
Awesome. Here I go. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me tonight. My name.
Wait, yeah. Just
Can
now
you
we
hear
have
me?
an audio problem here. Can you put it up louder?
I'm gonna turn it on.
Do we have can we use that mic over there? Okay, now. Okay, now say a couple of things, Eric. We'll check the volume.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Mic check.
Okay, that's.
Hmm.
Okay, so we'll have a little moment here to get the volume up. This one's up at 100.
The volume's coming out of your computer and the TV. I don't know. Stop.
Can we use that mic over there? Put it next to your computer.
Do you mind if I switch songs to give you like
No,
1 minute?
Sorry, no, we can do that. It might cause feedback, I'm afraid.
If
Oh,
you
thank
right
you.
click and go to volume mixer, you should be able to pick the output device.
Yeah, I just don't, none of these are what we want. That's gonna be just your computer audio, but can you, Eric, do you mind testing and seeing if folks in the room can hear?
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're getting better.
But it's not.
All right. We're working on it.
Yeah.
How,
How's that?
how are we doing now?
Okay, I think that's gonna do it. As long as we're real quiet while you're talking.
All right. I'll try to I'll try to project my voice from the East Coast so you can hear me.
That'd be terrific. Okay.
Yes. All right.
Now we're going to start all over. Eric, you're on. You're 2
All
minutes
right.
starting.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad we got through that. We're going to make this work one way or another, right? My name is Eric Pratt. Thank you guys for letting me be here. Let me extend my apologies for not being there in person. I have to work, and a project I'm on right now in Pennsylvania has some weather delays. So we're dealing with that. We're trying to get home soon. My name, or you already got my name. I'm a born and raised Jefferson County, Washington resident. I'm a single father. I've got 2 wonderful kids. Who are biracial, and we live in the rural community of Quilcene, Washington, over here in Jefferson County. I've lived in the Jefferson County my entire life, and I have watched it changed drastically over the past 20 years. And in some cases, amazingly, for the better. And in some cases, I worry perhaps for the worse. And this is particular appointment to me because every night at the kitchen table, and my kids and I, we talk about the things that are going on in their lives. One of the things that pops up the most is what they're going to do after high school in our area. And that leads me here to today because I'm worried about my kids' future and my neighbor's future. So, as a father and a son and a neighbor, I'm trying to do what I can to change our district and do what I can to help steward our district for the better for their sake, because I want them to build homes, have faith in themselves and their ability to make a living here in our district. And I think our neighbors do too. And I'm a little concerned that maybe things have slowed down and the outlook is a little dimmer than it used to be. And I'd like to see that change. So with that, I'll finish up what I have to say. Look forward to answering questions.
People on Zoom couldn't hear some of it. It was just, there was echo. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. So the people on Zoom end up hearing?
We have to mute the mic in the office only while Eric is speaking online. Otherwise, they hear both through Eric's mic and the mic in the office, and it's overlapping.
I'm glad you guys know how to cope with all that. That's good.
I apologize for the interruption.
No, it's fine. Okay, so now each one of you will be given an opportunity if you want. I'm just gonna stay down there so she doesn't have to keep.
But he won't show on the camera, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, we're going to get this figured out. We're going to do it.
You know what I can do? I can just say 1 minute, 30 seconds. I'll just interject that when he's talking, when Eric is talking.
Okay, so Christy, you can come back here, so. Sorry. On here, Mr. Entertainment. Okay, so now, you all are, if you'd like, you can take a 1 minute to rebut anything you've heard or any additional comment you want to make. Adam, you were first.
I'm okay with that, a rebuttal.
Okay, Aiden.
I'm good.
Okay, Eric. You have 1 minute if you want to use it. You have to unmute.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a rebuttal, but I do want to mention I can't unmute myself for some reason. So that's one of the hiccups we'll have to work through going forward.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
I think you should just stay unmuted.
I can do that. I'll just be quiet.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we have, they said we have 3 places we're gonna have questions. We have a bunch of pre-submitted ones. We'll do that, and we're gathering some from the live audience, so we'll be rotating those. So the first question, and Aiden, you are the first one up for this question. We'll rotate who answers first. What skills, experience, or perspectives will you bring to the office as a member of the state legislature?
What skills would I bring? The first thing is that a lot of what I have comes from my own personal lived experience. Just my untraditional education background there, going to the online public school with our school district, Seaview. What I did there was, I think, impressive. During my freshman year, being a high school student, just for clarification, I had collected, I believe it was 22 semester long classes completed, which is the equivalent to half of all the credits you need to graduate high school. This was an untraditional path. And so what that really showed is that becoming a bit of what I would call an autodidact, a self-teacher, has allowed me to kind of progress in a unique way just throughout things. So being a bit of a self-teacher, and then also, I mean, I've had some past experiences doing other things. I've served on the advisory committee to a nonprofit, 501c3, CCUSA, where we focus on getting youth to what we call ABLE, arts, business, law, education. And we do that through scholarships and mentorships. And so that's a little bit of some of my extra background. And I want to use primarily my lived experience as a recent student of our public education system to help inform our public policy surrounding education. It's regular that we'll elect teachers, paraeducators, individuals who are familiar with our public education system to the state legislature. But something that is a bit of a rare opportunity is electing someone who's familiar with the perspective of a student. And post-COVID, I think that that's a very valuable thing.
Okay, thank you. And Eric, you'll be next. And also at any time, if you want to have the question repeated, feel free to ask. So are you all right with the question, Eric?
I believe so. I believe I got that.
All right.
What skill sets do I bring to as a candidate?
Skill sets and experience and perspective.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an end stakeholder, being a middle-aged single father of two, sole breadwinner, lifelong resident. I'm the end user of all the trickle-down effects of our federal, state, county, and not in my case, the city, but I'm the end user. And I see at the kitchen table every day sort of the effects these have. And I talk with my neighbors on a day-to-day basis. On a day-to-day basis about these things. The skills I bring, I've spent the past 22 years traveling around the country in community after community, working alongside some of the best men and women that I could honestly say I'm blessed to work beside. My experience in working with those diverse people leads me to believe that I'll be able to reach across the aisle in talk with the people that are sort of my political opposition, but that stand in firm support of their communities just like I do. And that being said, acting as a bridge between conservative values and sort of liberal values, I think is an important thing. And my work experience and my vast life experience across our nation could lend itself well to that. So I think that's a unique blend that's not seen in a lot of legislators, but I think it matches District 24 values. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Adam, same question.
I think the hardest part of being a state legislator is that you represent 150 thousand people. You don't have the time to talk to everybody. And at least in this district, people have a whole bunch of different perspectives. The average view of somebody in Incumbent County is not the same as the average view of somebody in Jefferson or Grace Harbor. And I think that you have to do a lot of triangulation. So one of the skills that I bring and something that I try to live every day and that I'm always working on is having an open mind and having different processes for reaching out to people. So one of the things that I've done in my role is I have regular stakeholdering meetings with different levels of government, with different parts of industry. I have regular conversations with people at PUDs, with city council members. We're restricted during election years. I'm not allowed to do it anymore. But when we didn't have election years, I would host regular coffees and I would invite everyone to the district to them just to hear about what people would think about. I think that when you get that information, another thing that I try to bring is an open mind. I vote with the party and I vote against the party. I try not to be locked up on any issue. I try to change my mind and admit when I'm wrong. everybody is wrong. And I think that one of the things that's led to a lot of disillusionment as government is an unwillingness for people to own up to their mistakes. And I think that accountability is important. So those are some of the perspectives that I brought over the last couple of years. And I, like everybody, I'm still growing and improving. And I'm looking forward to learning from you all ways that I can keep doing this job better.
Thank you. So Eric, you're going to be first up on the next question, and this is from the live audience here. With $16 to $17 billion of state debt, but a desire for expanding services and keeping taxes down, how do you feel about Washington State establishing a state bank such as they have in the Dakotas?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the end, such as they have in the Dakotas.
North Dakota, if they've had it for a long time. A state bank.
I'm sorry, I'm still not catching the end. The audio is very choppy.
Okay, so I'll start again. Here's the mic. Okay.
Okay.
So with $16 to $17 billion in state debt, yet increasing demands for services and the desire for lower taxes, how do you feel about Washington State establishing a state bank such as they've had in North Dakota for many years?
Well, I would say I would be apprehensive out of the gate without an expansion on what that bank does, is, and why it benefits and Washington State specifically. It would be hard for me to answer that question. If we're talking about maintaining a lower tax burden and also trying to satisfy the needs of the services of the state, I think there's room for change and accountability. I think we can go through and start looking into agencies and start trimming some budgets. I think some of the administration heavy books could be brought down a little bit to make room to provide services without adding tax burden on the citizens of Washington State. Specifically to the Bank of the North Dakotas, I can't say that I'm super familiar, so I can't really expand on that safely. I would love to see what you have or what this question has specifically and take a look and see how it applies to Washington. But again, it's really difficult for me to sort of really take a position on something I'm not familiar with in this case related to the North Dakota's banking system. But I could say I'd be a little apprehensive out of the gate.
Good. So Adam, you're second on this question.
So there's been a proposal to establish a state bank banging around the legislature for, I think, about a decade now. And it hasn't gotten particularly far. My understanding is a lot of the barriers have to do with the fact that it's very technically challenging to implement that bank. But rather than lingering on some of the technical difficulties, I'd like to share some of the things that I think a state bank would do that would be really beneficial, in particular in our district. Something that's pretty challenging, in particular, if you are a tribal member and you're poor and you're trying to get a mortgage, is that there's a legal construct basically that you would need to implement in order for a bank to be able to give you a loan that the bank would feel comfortable being able to go after if you default, right? If you've given a loan that's on tribal land, it's harder to collect. And one of the challenges that's introduced is that it's a lot harder, in particular for lower income tribal members, to access traditional mortgages. So some type of public funding mechanism, this is, I think, one of the stronger arguments for a state bank that I've heard. I think that would make a big difference for a lot of members of our community. So that's something that I would like to see the state implement, whether we create a full bank or not. Some of the bank-like activities, funding for small businesses, for people that have harder times accessing credit, residential mortgage loans for people that have harder times accessing them. I think that those are positive things. I would be lying if I told you I knew the exact correct structure to implement those, be it a bank or something else. But I do think that that type of proposal is something that we should pursue.
Thank you. Aiden, you're next.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say I'm sorry for the coughing. I have had an allergic reaction to some of breakfast this morning, but a bit of poison for myself. I don't do sage very well. But when it comes to a state bank, that's something I'm not too familiar with, but I am interested in because I do remember reading something about that just a while back. And so that's definitely a proposal that I'm not familiar with because it is something that's a bit more local to the Dakotas. Correct me, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think many other states have something like that. I'm sorry.
Only state bank.
Oh, yeah, it's the only state. Then there you go. So, them being the only state bank, it's something interesting because it is something just completely unique. And so my default is just curiosity because I'm not so familiar with it. Adam gets a little bit of advantage because he's been in the legislature, and so he can kind of firsthand see the implications of it. But curiosity is the first thing I'd bring to that subject, but I couldn't give you an answer because it's not something I'm familiar with. It's something interestingly unique to the Dakota.
Thank you. Okay, and the next question, Adam, you'll be first up.
It's from Zoom.
Oh, you have one in Zoom? Okay.
Let's see.
Um, Many of the biggest challenges facing the 24th legislative district, housing, infrastructure, public safety, etc., requires close coordination between the state, counties, cities, tribes, and special districts. If elected, how would you work with local governments to ensure state policy supports local communities without creating unfunded mandates or reducing local flexibility? So Adam, you're first up.
So I think a lot of it's a great question. It's something that I'm still trying to figure out, and it's kind of a big chunk of the job. So I mentioned in my opener that I have regular meetings with different levels of government where we try to talk through some of the issues that people experience. A lot of times there are efficiencies that you could realize for a given level of government if you it's hokey to say, but if you put in a bit of elbow grease and work something through with agencies, I'd like to give just one example of this. This is something that I was helping with last week. Right now, when WashDOT has projects that they're working on, they oftentimes will there will be opportunities for PUDs to move a culvert that they know they have to move, but it requires WashDOT to coordinate with those PUDs in advance. So you need timely communication between these two agencies. There's some federal dollars that, for reasons that are complicated, it's hard to specify can go exactly to PUDs because our state constitution doesn't allow you to name one recipient of public dollars. But we can swap out federal dollars for state dollars and then pass those through WashDOT to the PUDs in order to facilitate these culverts. So if you've been following me on this, I'm sorry. It's a remarkably complicated, tedious issue. A whole lot of my job, genuinely, is working with state agencies to try and make sure that we solve these things. So we recently got an agreement for WashDOT to sit down with the AG's office to come up with a novel grant-giving vehicle, which will make it legal under state law for our local PUDs to receive these funds. That's good. I'm done talking about this anyway.
Thank you. And so Aiden, you're next.
Yeah, could you repeat the question real quick?
You gotta find it on Zoom here. Okay, so you have to bring it down here. Down. Here it is. Okay. So many of the biggest challenges facing the 24th legislative district, such as housing and many other things, require close coordination between the state, counties, cities, tribes, and special districts. If elected, how would you work with local governments to ensure the state policy supports local communities without creating unfunded mandates or reducing local flexibility? A long, complicated question.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing is that there's not really much I can really add on. There's a little bit, but as far as like for a lot of what Adam said, a lot of it is sitting down with people constantly and trying to work things out. I mean, that's just kind of how it always is when you're looking with a lot of different people. Again, our district is 3 counties large, and then we're working with the state, and as well as many small nations. And so having to coordinate, that's just a large part of the duties of being a legislator is, you're representing, in this case, all these different people. And so, yeah, doing just constant meetings. I mean, I'll be kind of sitting in a situation where I'll be texting between like three different people just at once, trying to coordinate like meetings and such. And so sitting down with constituents in doing that is a big thing. So what I would say though is that in reference to the unfunded mandates, I think that that's something that I really do want to center, because a lot of our junior taxing districts have just been hit so hard with a lot of these unfunded mandates. And so I think just centering that as the focus of this is something I don't want to do unless it's absolutely necessary. Just thinking to our local school districts, our fire districts, and all the others, that those unfunded mandates do really hit them hard, given everything that's been going on lately. So I think that that would be one of my priorities, is making sure we're not sending too many unfunded mandates locally. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Eric, you're next. Do you want the question repeated?
Actually, I guess I'm the only one who can actually, I got the luxury of sitting here and reading it. So I got it right here for me.
All right.
So, I mean, it seems pretty simple. We got to communicate at every level. And that can be difficult with intergovernment relations, state, county, the PUDs, I mean, all the stakeholders in this stream of policy. It can be a difficult thing to manage, but in reality, it just comes down to communication. You have to try and maximize that between all these stakeholders listed, so as to prevent an unfunded mandate or to reduce local flexibility. Each municipality or each step in this place is going to have their own individual concerns. Trying to get everybody on board and understanding what that legislation is, how it affects them, probably is very difficult. I imagine Adam has gone through this a great deal more than I can imagine. But it's probably one of the biggest challenges in making sure government is effective at its job at every
30
level.
seconds.
So I would say encouraging synergy through legislation is going to be key to this, and communication, getting them to show up, getting them to, talk about the bills as they're working their way through the legislature will be critical. So as a representative, I would have to work directly to try and enable that communication as much as possible. But it's a trick, but it's communication.
Thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Aiden, you'll be first for this question. There are innumerable issues in our state. Talk to a lot of people, you get a lot of different input. So what do you consider to be the most important issues facing our district? And list your top 3.
Mm-hmm. I think what I'll do is I'll lean into the top 3 for me, because I don't want to necessarily definitively say, because you just can't get every door in the Olympic Peninsula. And so again, our district is 3 counties large, so I don't want to stamp it with this is the number one issue that our district faces. But I can say that my top 3 issues that I've been focusing on are, and I've brought them up so far a little bit. Education, that's something big towards for me, and it's something I have a unique ability to relate to. Taxation, again, when it comes to housing affordability, that's also another one that I'm really concerned about. And just to take a moment to get into some of the specifics behind those, when it comes to housing affordability and taxation, a lot of the times I feel like people feel like there's this great burden when it comes to these 2 things, because there's just a lot of taxes coming down from the state. There's a lot of regulations coming down from the state as well, and these can kind of pile on to people. And this is kind of what has caused, I think, a lot of the issues. But those would be my top 3. As far as the district goes, what I really want to do is I want to sit down with folks and talk to them about issues that they are worried about. And so I was doing door knocking recently, and for one person, it was taxation, another person was vagrancy. And so I would say too that if people just have an issue, that they could always reach out to me, because even if I can't directly affect it, one of the things I like to do is, being someone knowledgeable, is directing them towards the people who can help them out with their issues. So if it's something I can't do, but a city councilman can, then I'll direct them to the city councilman.
Thank you. And Eric, you're next.
Sure. What are my top 3? concerns. Is that the right question?
Yeah, what you consider to be the most important issues
For our,
facing.
for our district. Okay, that's, I think, a pretty straightforward one for me. Number one, I think it's jobs. Because jobs provide a future, gives people a connection to their home, and they value their place that they live, which enables stewardship in all the other ways. So jobs in balance with our local environment is going to be key. If we can maximize jobs and we can get the medium incomes up, and we can approach we can close the gap between what the costs are and how much people are making, I think we'll see huge train. I think we'll see huge changes in sort of the socioeconomic status problems that we see on our streets, such as occur in Port Angeles and in parts of Jefferson County and down in Aberdeen. So that could go a long way. The other thing I want to make sure, and this is in tandem with this, is making sure small businesses are thriving with some of the highest failure rates, if not the highest failure rate in the nation. I'm pretty sure. I think if we can change that metric right there, now we have small businesses integrating into our community, again, enforcing and encouraging a robust sense of community. And this will tie into other things, including revenues coming into our cities and counties and the state as well. So this is a sort of a trickle up effect. If we can maximize the individual and their ability to provide for themselves, I think we can go a long way to helping broadening the effects, good effects to our district.
Thank you. And Adam, you're next. Same question.
I think that stabilizing our healthcare system is the most urgent thing that we have to address on the North Peninsula. We've begun to feel the impact of HR1, and even before HR1, there's still so much damage that was done with COVID. There's so much cost that was added by bringing in travelers and locums that increased expenses. We've seen a loss of services. That makes it challenging. Both, if the hospital closes Port Angeles, that's one of the worst things you could do to this town, right? I mean, to me, this is an existential issue. The jobs that you generate in the healthcare sector are also some of the most lucrative jobs in the community. That's an economic engine. So I view this as like a defensive action. Reducing the cost of housing, this is still tremendously important. Think about how much more money would flow into our local economy if you were to reduce the median rent payment or the median mortgage payment. This is money that all flows outward. And instead, you could have young families that could spend money in local shops. It makes it easier for people to spur businesses and so on. And then I want to piggyback on something that Eric was talking about, but economic development broadly is challenging. We do have a really high rate of failure in small businesses on the North Peninsula. It's tough to have long-term stable economic growth. And some of that I really do think is the unstable regulatory environment that's come from Democratic leadership in the legislature. And that's something that I talk to my colleagues about all the time. And that's something that I'm working on in Olympia.
Thank you. The next question, Eric, you will be first. And this is a question from the audience here. Recently, Eugene, Oregon physicians successfully filed a lawsuit against the Peace Health for violating Oregon's corporate medical law because they wanted to import a Georgia-based company. So what is your position on restricting private equity and corporate practice of medicine modeled on the Oregon law?
That's a tough one. I'll give it my best shot. I'm not familiar with this Oregon law, so I can't say. I'm not quite sure what the question is regarding. It's specific to our district. Can you repeat that for me so I can sort of dig out?
The component of the question is, what is your position on restricting private equity and corporate practice of medicine? So, you know, they have that
Restricting
whole equity issue in a whole bunch of parts of our lives, like how it affects housing and how it affects medicine.
So restricting private equity and corporate medical in our lives, is that what I'm getting? Okay. I'm not familiar with the Oregon issue. So right off the gate, I can't say with certainty. Private equity is a controversial member of our economy. I don't think it's a net positive all the time, but there are moments where we can exist in balance with it. And if it's a way to keep Medicare viable or medicine, local medical facilities viable, I don't know why it would be a bad thing. I would have to understand what really the idiosyncrasies of any policy are that are sort of driving this want to keep it separate. If it creates lower cost healthcare or a higher quality of healthcare for the same costs, I would say it's worth looking into. But I would have to lean on the experts to really dig into this and understand what the situation is in Oregon broader. So,
excuse me, 30 seconds.
oh, did I use up all my time?
Oh, yeah,
I'm having
30 seconds.
I got 30 seconds. Okay. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on it for the 30 seconds, but I appreciate that.
Thank you. Sorry, it gets so confusing. Okay, Adam, you're next.
So that I think it was in New Jersey. I'm not familiar with the Oregon law, so I can't speak to the specifics of it.
But I think that's an example. The real question is your view on private equity and corporate practice of medicine.
So there have been a bunch of cases where private equity has come in. This has happened in a couple states on the East Coast, bought up a bunch of rural hospitals, run them into the ground, and they've closed. So I haven't seen, and I haven't really heard a particularly compelling example of why we should be encouraging private equity acquisitions in this space. To chew on this question in another way.
Well, I want to just clarify. It's the question is, what is your position on restricting private equity?
So I haven't seen a bill that's been brought yet that would specifically say this type of equity partner can't purchase a healthcare provider. There's something called the Keep Our Care Act, which a version of which we passed into law in the past legislative session that had a number of restrictions around what types of services you can close after an acquisition happens. I think that was a step in the right direction. I like broadly opposed to private equity being able to purchase, in particular, hospitals. I think that there's a lot of money in this space that already exists. I think that if there's some need for capital to buy failing healthcare systems, I'm going to try and answer this question in a way that I think is fair and challenging to myself. I think that there are reasons why we shouldn't try and kick all private money out of healthcare right now. I think that there are hospitals that close if you don't have some of the private hospitals that have budgets to purchase them and to keep them open, that where you could end up seeing just the destruction of those healthcare systems. But private equity, I think, has been net destructive, and I don't support them.
Thank you. So Aiden, do you want the question again, or?
No, I don't think I'll need it.
Okay.
When talking about private equity in relationship with our hospitals and whatnot, I do think that it is quite a bit of a concern because I'm just thinking about it. You have these people who will come by and they'll buy up large portions of everything. I mean, I'm more familiar with it in relation to, buying up housing, but I mean, with hospitals, it's a massive problem with housing. So I don't see why it would suddenly not be a problem when it starts to, kind of kick in relation to hospitals. So would I say that I'm like flat out against it? No, but I'm immediately concerned when it comes to it. So it's something that, again, I'm not the most familiar with. I don't. It sounds like the three of us aren't super familiar with this issue, but it knowing what I do about similar situations, it does draw a lot of concern for me. So without becoming more informed, my answer is never going to be a yes or a no. But I can say that it is a concern that I do share because of what I do know about the issue. And I don't really want to take up more time and just throw in words. It's a concern I share and with my limited understanding. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, do we have a question on Zoom?
Yes.
All right. And Eric gets to read it on his screen. So, and Adam, you're going to be the first one for this question. Okay. So What is your position on the millionaire tax and the drive to nullify it?
I voted for it, and I proudly voted for it. I think that's probably one of the most momentous things I'll ever participate in my political career. I am broadly supportive of having some kind of income taxation. I think the devil's always in the details. I know that's not a popular thing to say, but I think as Democrats, we should feel comfortable saying that. That's a far more sensible form of taxation than B&O taxation. It can be much less regressive than sales taxation. It can be less regressive than property taxation, and so I'm happy that we passed it. And I think that one of the challenges moving forward is like the discussion around the millionaires tax is mostly a discussion around, well, what if people try to lower the millionaires tax? So I'd like to talk about that a little bit too. Uh, I don't think it makes sense to be a blanket supporter or opposer of any given type of policy. And it's heartening to hear both of my opponents share that same spirit, right? You shouldn't just be an up or down vote. I don't think people want rubber stamps or ideological litmus testers. Um, if there's a discussion about where the millionaires tax should go next, one of the things that I want to see is that it's revenue neutral and that it makes our tax system more progressive, not just that it goes to an ever increasing in the state's bottom line. I think that there's a very fair concern that we have out of control budget growth in Washington state. And I think that we need to rein that in. We shouldn't make reining that in prevent us from making our tax system more fair.
Thank you. Okay, and Aiden, you're next.
Yeah. So I am against the income tax, and here's what I'll state. It is not just Republicans who are against it. There were 8 Democrats who I would call heroes for voting against the income tax, against party requested lines. And so that's the thing, is that it is bipartisan, but it's not just on the grounds of we don't want an income tax. Part of the legal counsel opposing it is somebody who actually wants an income tax, but they have openly stated that as a lawyer, they believe it is unethical because it is unconstitutional. Former Attorney General Rob McKenna has come out against the income tax, stating that he believes that it was crafted with intent to intentionally go after the past Supreme Court decision in which initially made an income tax illegal. And so that's part of what is driving me, is not only is it a bipartisan coalition that is against the income tax, but it is also just wrong on constitutional grounds, and it was created knowing that it was unconstitutional. And so, I mean, there's a large swath of people who are against it. And then to go into it, I would say some stuff that is relevant to it is that we need to focus on fixing the budget now before we start adding more taxes onto the table. Former Governor Christine Gregoire openly stated that the fact that we went from a $30 billion budget to an $80 billion budget in such a short span of time is a bit ridiculous. And so there's bipartisan support against the income tax. And so that's where my decision comes from. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Eric, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. It's an excellent question. Probably the top of mind for a lot of people around the state. Well, I don't know if this will come as much surprise, but it is a sort of a fact that I was actually the very first person to sign up to speak out in opposition against the millionaires tax in the committee. My name was at the top of the list. I didn't get called first to testify, but I was there to testify and I was top of the list. So I'm not a supporter of it, but I mean, we enjoy a income taxless state. It's been one of the things that has made Washington a unique financial powerhouse, I think. And if we're going to start adding this new idea of a progressive taxation system on our income tax, we need to provide tax relief elsewhere. And so I'm a little surprised and was a little concerned when this came out that we didn't see that on top of this. It was just sort of adding to the revenue streams, and the trickle down effects were going to be felt. I think that was pretty clear in a lot of the testimony in committee and a lot of the debates that happened on the floor. I'm a little surprised we didn't see a threshold. If there was a real commitment to wanting to maintain this taxation, that to only millionaires, there would have been a threshold. So I'm a little concerned. As far as the drive to nullify it, I mean, that's the initiative process. That's the citizens' right to do. And so if people are willing and want to, then they get to do that.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Aiden, you're going to answer first. And the question is, if elected, what committees would you seek to serve on and why would you choose those particular committees?
So this, because of what I've said before, I don't think this will surprise anybody. That the first one I want to serve on is education. That's something that I'm intimately familiar with, being familiar with it most recently. The following answer, I like to say, gets the House Republicans really excited. Because after education, I'm pretty much open to anything that they want to send me to, because I'm newer, and they'll send me to where ultimately every time I talk to members of the caucus, they always say appropriations it is. But when it comes to what I want to focus on, there are so many things. Obviously, the budget committee is one that I'm interested in, but education is again my priority. I want to do everything I can in the legislature, and so excuse me. And so again, it is ultimately the leader of the caucus's decision. And so what I want to do in Olympia is a little less of it's ultimately up to him. So I can't necessarily speak for him, but I can say that education is my number one goal. That's the one committee I do want to be on. For the most part, I'm willing to work with the caucus on everything else, so long as I can make sure that our district has a strong voice on the committee for education. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Eric, you're next.
Yeah, super. If I had my committee wish list, number one would be Environment and Energy, the House Environment and Energy Committee. Number two would be the Civil Rights and Judiciary, and then the House Housing Committee. I think Environment and Energy is sort of like our no income tax. It represents Washington State in a lot of ways, because we are just huge proponents of stewardship of our environment. You know, we recognize some of the mistakes of the past and we want to do better. And I think that that's part of our energy system too. You know, we've had our hydroelectric power for so many years, and it kept our energy costs low. We enjoyed that. I know we're retooling this idea of the dams on the rivers, and we're trying to adjust that for our environmental stewardship priorities. And so I think those two things could be critical, along with accountability financially, and then to embettering, making better Washington State's citizens' lives. And civil rights and judiciary, I think that's an important one too, because I think we're starting to see challenges to individual rights and liberties that maybe need to be kept in check. And housing, obviously, when we are so far above the national average, and me being concerned for my kids' future, I want to see what we can do to minimize that, get that closer to the median income threshold, so that it's a tenable relationship between citizens and their ability to find a house. So if I had my wish list, that would be it.
Thank you. Adam, you're next.
So I'm currently on transportation, where I'm the vice chair, and I'm gonna linger just for a second on what that means. There are 3 budget writing committees: Transpo, Probes, and the Capital Budget Committee. And I think one of the best things that anybody can do for their district is to try and have a pen on a budget. And I've got one of those on Transpo, so I'm going to stay there as long as that's the case. Ag and Natural Resource is also another important committee for our district. And also, just to peel back the onion a bit, it's just a lot of really nice people. It's a very pleasant environment. A lot of people will bring you delicious snacks. That's a good reason to do it, but it's a good vibe. It's a good time. And I feel like I get to do substantive kind of technical work. I enjoy the stuff that I'm doing there. I'm currently on early learning and human services. I'm interested in childcare policy. I'm more interested in healthcare policy, though. Theringer served on healthcare. I think that this is a team sport, and the three of us try and make sure that we have good coverage with our committee assignments. Since Therenter's retiring, I'm going to request to join the healthcare committee, and I anticipate shifting over to that in the upcoming term.
Thank you. So Eric, you're first up for the next question, and it comes from our audience, our live audience. How do you plan to protect programs like Apple Care and free and reduced school lunches in the face of federal budget cuts?
Well, if the feds are cutting it, then we're going to have to find ways to fund it in the state level. I think it's possible, but you're going to see, the Office of Financial Management has a real dire outlook in the budget. And if we get creative with our revenue, you might be able to subsidize that. But I think more efficient spending toward the budget could see protection for Apple Health. If we're looking at problems of funding that with from the federal side, then the state's going to have to figure out how to pay for it itself. I think maximizing business potential to increase, already existing taxation revenue streams is going to go a long way. Not getting businesses to move out of state, making sure they stay here, keeping them on the tax base, so that we're not seeing, what the Office of Financial Management is forecasting. We're not seeing a retraction of that revenue. That if you can get accountable, again, kind of leading back to some of the stuff I've said earlier, if we can get accountability and sort of trim some of the administration heavy costs of agencies around the state, I think we can start to see some flexibility in budgeting for these important social services that our communities have come to depend on.
Just right on target. Thank you. And so next, where we are, there's Eric. Okay, Adam, you're next. No, we haven't finished this question. Adam, you're next.
So I think this is a tough question. It's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about in the most recent revenue forecast. I think we have an $800 million hole over the next biennium. But that $800 million does not include the people who are losing Medicaid. We book that as savings in the state budget, which I think is pretty grim. So if you're actually looking to backfill, the number is quite a bit larger. It's I think the number by coincidence that Chris Gregoire was talking about recently is something like $5 billion over 4 years. There are some things that I think we can do. One of the ways that we can reduce costs in the healthcare space is by reducing the B&O taxation that happens on various parts of our healthcare services. So I'm going to be pushing in the upcoming session, for example, to remove B&O taxes for delivery services in rural hospitals. This is a wordy way of saying we can reduce the amount of state revenue that we're collecting broadly from the healthcare bucket or broadly from providers of food services. That's one way to counterbalance some of these cuts. We had a 7% across the board cut to state agencies. There's going to be another cut like that we're going to propose. I think it's challenging to get here with government efficiency alone. Maintaining the millionaire's tax is going to be vitally important. And one of the other things that I'm going to be doing is fighting to make sure that we're going to provide fundamental services in healthcare, fundamental services in nutrition, and not going toward broader expansion, not just going toward other collective bargaining.
Okay. So Aiden, same question.
Yeah. The first thing trying to address there when it comes to school lunches and stuff. So again, I think the first thing is to kind of recognize what we've done recently with the budget at the state level. And so what I saw in 2024 was we had, I believe it was a $1.2 billion budget. We were 1.2 over our budget. So we had a surplus. Then the following year, in 2025, we had I believe it was a $12 to $15 billion budget deficit. What are we doing that causes such a deficit? That's pushed us into this cycle of cutting things, increasing taxes in such a way that's been, I think, catastrophic for a lot of people in our state. And it's, for the most part, it's hurting our programs just across the board, no matter what. And so the first thing is again, avoiding unfunded mandates, making sure that our junior taxing districts, like the schools, that need that those lunches, that they have more money on hand so that we can again continue to fund these things. And then also making sure that we're not putting these cuts in the first place. House Republicans year after year constantly produce a budget. And this last year, what they really wanted to emphasize with this was that this was a no new taxes, no cuts budget. And year after year, every single time that we introduce that legislation, it gets rejected. And so this is part of it too, is emphasizing that House Republicans have been very diligent on this issue of the budgeting without cutting anything. And we just get rejected year after year.
Okay, thank you. So Adam, you're the next. First up for the next question, which is from my white sheet. So, do you believe in climate change? Is it real? And how big a threat is it to our L24? And you have some ideas for solutions.
Yes, it's real. I think it's a really big threat to LD24. We have more coastline than almost any, I think, than any other legislative district in the state. Maybe the 19th could compete with us. I'm going to talk about solutions. I could wax on about the many ways that I think it will threaten us. It will threaten the jobs that people have. I think it is also just a moral imperative. It's the right thing for us to do to deal with the problems that are in front of us. That's a value that I have, and I think it's a value that everybody, that most members of our community share. So here are some things that we can do. Washington State is currently last in the nation at renewable energy development. We're terrible at it, absolutely terrible at it. We are slower at bringing on new transmission lines than almost any other state in the nation. Look at Texas, which is basically an anarcho-petro state, and they crush us at bringing new solar and wind online. And there's a lot of stuff, frankly, that we can learn. Some of those things have to do with modifying our permitting process. We should have categorical SEPA exemptions for reconductoring. We should make it easier for people to swap out the elements in wind turbines. Right now, it can take you 3 years if you want to fix your wind turbine. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. This is a failure for us to solve some pretty simple political problems. Another thing that I want us to do is pick up the playbook that's really worked on having permitting reform in the housing space and applying that to energy. There's a lot of NIMBY policies, overlays that make it challenging to build battery storage, makes it challenging to build solar panels. That stuff, we did a good job kicking that stuff out of housing. We can do that same thing in the renewable energy space too.
Thank you. Okay, and Aiden, you're next.
Yeah, I do believe climate change is real. And my first thing with this issue is that I'm not pleased with anybody on this issue for the most part. Both Republicans and Democrats, I think, have failed in large ways because I feel like they're both they're both sides of the same coin, effectively. You have, in large part, a lot of people who don't necessarily believe in climate change. And then you have a lot of people who offer solutions that, frankly, just don't work in many cases. I mean, we're talking about something that can really hurt our local communities. So we're trying to look for all these options, but then we're not really getting anything that actually works. I mean, Adam pointed it out that we're falling behind even Texas on renewable energy, but yet we're trying as a state to really push this. And so that's kind of the first thing is I think he highlighted it perfectly. Is that we're saying one thing and then we're just not doing anything about it. But then and what I've seen most often is that the solutions that are being proposed don't actually produce the results that we want to see. And so that's the things I'm seeing more feel-good solutions than anything. And that's what I've been really disappointed about. So I think in large part that both parties have kind of failed on this issue. And so what I would kind of want to do is start looking at the data myself, because I just don't trust either party on this issue. I think it's one that Democrats more often than not tend to take advantage of for political gain, and Republicans tend to avoid it. And if you want one that's kind of a similar thing, Republicans tend to take advantage of like the national debt for political gain, and Democrats tend to avoid it. So both parties have that kind of issue that they take for gain and then avoid on the other. So
thank you. Yeah. Okay, Eric, the same question. So we have.
Do I believe in climate?
Okay, let me get that.
Sorry.
On your face was obliterated. So your face to come back.
Oh,
same question.
got full screen up there.
Do I look okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can believe in love. I can believe in, ghosts. Climate change has empirical evidence that supports it. There's nothing really to believe there, right? I don't know that that's the right way to frame, in my opinion, the question or sort of the challenges that we face here in legislative district 24, Washington State, the United States, the world. What we're trying to do isn't admit that climate change is real. It's how do we deal with our impact on it appropriately and in balance with the needs of humans. I've actually had the pleasure of driving through the Permian Basin in Texas, where it smells like diesel fuel for miles. I've been to Beijing. I've been to Urumqi in China and seen the clouds of smoke over the tops of these cities. I've been there when APEC opened the skies. They shut down manufacturing, and all of a sudden you could see the stars at night in Beijing. I've seen the impact that industry has on a very real time scale. I've been to Hawaii, where I work periodically, and seen the impact of the wind turbines on the locals being sort of pushed into their neighborhoods to supply other neighborhoods with energy, and the impact that has on a human level. So I think the issue here really, and everybody's in agreement, the issue is creating a way to do it in balance. I think nuclear technology is one of those things that Washington State
Thanks,
can start to
Eric.
lead on.
Time? All right. So Eric, next time you answer a question, we're gonna put the time up in can you see it on the screen? You'll see it on the screen, so we won't have to interrupt your question. So we'll talk about that next time you have to answer a question.
Okay, good deal.
Well, we'll work
I'll
on
work
that
on it.
question, yeah.
Yeah.
So Aiden, you're the first one to answer this question, which is Zoom. What's our Zoom question?
Do I get the first Zoom?
We already did the millionaire tax question.
No,
All right.
I got some.
I follow it. Okay, so the question is, do you support the transfer of the wildlife preserve on the Spit and Protection Island to the tribes? So, Aiden, you're first.
Yeah. So this is actually something that I've been aware of for a little bit now, that I've actually been wanting to look more into. I've actually been trying to meet with some folks about it, and we're trying to get some stuff scheduled so that we can actually like sit down and kind of talk about it, so that I can actually become more familiar with the details. So this is something that I think later this month I was actually going to sit down with some folks on to actually learn a little bit about. So I don't want to jump ahead and make a commitment one way or the other on this until I know a bit more. Again, I've kind of already started to set up meetings to sit down with folks, so I feel like it'd be kind of pointless to say let's talk about this and then just make a statement out of the blue before that I've sat down with people. So I don't want to get ahead of myself there, but I can say that it is something that I have been looking into. And I think I'll put something out as soon as I can really get back to people on that. So I appreciate the question, but I'm not going to jump ahead of my meetings. So
Thank you. So Eric, you're next. Let's see if we can put the time up on your screen. And we put the, is that doable for us? I'm technologically literate, so.
We're ready to start.
Yeah, start, go ahead. Because we've already asked the question, so. There, so
Okay.
there's your time up there. Can you see it?
Here I go.
Okay,
I don't see a timer. You'll just have to tell me.
all right.
That's all right.
go
We're gonna
ahead.
make this work. Can you repeat the question for me first?
Yes,
It's in the chat.
so,
Do you,
yeah, I don't have it here. It's in the chat.
I don't see it in the chat by any
What is
means.
your
It's
position?
not-
Do you support the transfer of the wildlife preserves on the Spit and Protection Island to the tribes?
So I can't say that I do, but I don't understand the goal here. So I guess I'd have to be aware of why we're doing this first, or what the end goal was, and what the interests of legislative district 24, our district, are, and balance that with our relationship with the tribes and what they need. I think on its face, like if you just say we're just going to give this over, I'm a little apprehensive. And I've heard a lot of the community that I've sort of engaged with all share in that apprehension because they may not understand what's going on. It's not really been made clear as to why this is happening, other than it's just happening. At least that's what I know of it. So it would be better, I would think, to find a way to cooperate on this rather than just transferring it over. Find out what our goal is and whether or not we can meet it comfortably while considering legislative district 24, Clallam County, Jefferson County, their needs in combination with the needs of the tribe and the goals of this transfer. I think finding synergy in that would go a long way to make people, including myself, comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Adam,
Yeah, I think Eric did a good job of articulating like the framework that we should use, which is like what are the goals that we're trying to honor? What are the values that we're trying to honor? I think that this does meet the broader public interest. The tribe has articulated that they have an interest in taking on the responsibility for maintaining these assets, which like honestly, the state's broke. If I'm sure you all sort of know that. It's tough for us to
State. It's federal, so the
Yeah.
state doesn't do anything with it.
I think it's challenging.
okay, no,
Yeah,
you don't
thank-
interact with the audience, thank you.
I know.
I think my understanding is that the tribe has put forward a proposal to maintain public access while increasing investment in this. It's land that they have some historical connection to. If it's maintaining the same level of service and the same public benefits that exist now, but the tribe is able to provide those services, I'm supportive of that proposal. I think of these, the way that I try to think about these issues, and I think about healthcare in a broadly similar way, is that there's partnerships that exist between different levels of government. If a given level of government, if the tribe wants to take on a responsibility and to maintain the same benefits that exist for the public right now, I think that that's a positive thing that we should pursue. So that's my view.
Okay, thank you. Eric, you'll be first on the next question, and it's from the audience here. What specific actions would you take that would help create more jobs in our district?
What specific state actions would I take to create more jobs in our district?
Correct.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think reducing the top load on small businesses is where we should start. We should start talking with the small businesses that have failed, the people that continue to try over and over again, the restaurants, the small shops, and discuss with them what it is that leads to failure. I mean, I'm sure in their communities, I know there's a meeting with the Port Angeles Business Association this next week that we're going to have. I'm hoping to learn a lot about that. But in reality, we need to have the discussion with them as far as what they need to succeed. I imagine there's a tax load that takes its burden. I would like to see that. I would like to see some changes to the B&O tax if that will help, and regulatory issues. Not to compromise safety, not to compromise environmental stewardship, but processing and just general administration costs can probably be eliminated, which will help small businesses in the long run. And we need to create ecosystems for them to thrive in, and I think that's going to be a trick, but our communities need to have places where the smaller fish can grow into bigger fish that can grow into even larger fish, and then we have a more successful local ecosystem. So talk to the small businesses, communicate with them, discover what it is that's causing them to fail.
Okay, thanks. And so Adam, you're up next.
I think that we were asked a similar question last night, and I want to dig in a little bit more. I think that the maritime sector is one of the most promising parts of the economy, both in Clallam County and in Jefferson County. We service the majority of the fishing fleet that operates off the coast of Alaska. both wooden hold vessels, aluminum hold vessels. They come down to the peninsula to be serviced. And there's a lot of opportunity for meaningful growth here. So one thing that I'd like to see us do is have more state investment both in the capital assets that we might need, for example, the travel lifts that allow us to move boats, they're basically large warehouses, but the facilities that people make these repairs in, we can partner with our ports to make sure that that part of our economy is strong. I also think that we should do more investment in the continuing education space to make sure that young people have opportunities for apprenticeships, doing work inside of these facilities. I joke that this is almost impossible to talk about politically because it's like modifying child labor laws. But one of a real impediment that we have right now is that like kids who want to get work in any place where you have to wear a respirator, if you're under the age of 18, you can't do this continuing education there. And so it means if somebody's sanding down a ship somewhere, you can't get the job skills that you need elsewhere in that warehouse. There are small common sense reforms that we should make, but that are a little politically challenging to talk about that really would make a big difference in terms of people's access to those types of opportunities.
Thank you. Aiden, you're next with the same question.
Yeah. I was actually I'm good friends with a different candidate who actually has a similar focus on focusing on the maritime industry, and so hearing about that does get me a little excited because that is a natural advantage we have is that we have these people who come by and who need this kind of service, and so taking advantage of that and seeking the investment wherever we can get it is certainly part of it. One thing I also want to do though is Eric was touching on building a better business community that can also help as well. One of the things I think too is I actually knew someone personally. They were one of the people who was working on, I believe it was the one of the housing committees here in Port Angeles. He was, I believe it's deputy director. And him and his family, they picked up and left because there was no housing opportunities out here on the peninsula. And so one of the parts of this is a lot of these issues, they're kind of interconnected, but you'll have people who are professionals who are very good at their job will just pick up and leave because they would rather have a house in Tennessee, that's where he moved, rather than live here in an apartment with his family. And so I think that's part of the issue is while we can also try to seek investment in the maritime industry and then also try to pursue a better business climate, we also need to start focusing on housing and start to look at it as part of the issue when it comes to economic development is that we also need to make sure that the housing situation is fixed so that people can move to the peninsula and join the tax base if they want to. So I think I ran out of time. Yeah, I was moments behind it.
This will be the final question. And Adam, you're up first. And while Washington State says it funds schools, actually districts are still cutting staff, relying on levies and reducing programs. What specific changes would you support to make the state funding formula actually match the real cost of running schools in rural and small districts?
So post McCleary, we've had a 70% increase in the state's allocation to basic education. Over that time, we've slipped from, I think we were 23rd, now we're 31st in the nation. So we've both seen an absolute decrease in our education performance and a relative decrease to other states. I can give you some technical things that I think we should change. We should change the regionalization formula, which routes money toward the districts to have the highest property tax base. It's one of the regressive parts of our state's policy. I think it's wrong, and I think that it's something that needs to be handled. But even more broadly than that, there's something broken in the way that education funding is being delivered and the types of outcomes that it's producing. That's the case in rural districts. It's the case in urban districts in Washington state. I think that we should have more competitive models within the public education system. I think it makes sense for a person to be able to say, hey, I have a novel idea of how I want to deliver education inside of my school district and have a more experimental attitude. I think that we don't know right now in Washington state why things are broken. There are a lot of little technical changes that we can implement, but this bigger lack of curiosity, us trying to always solve the problem with increasing funding is part of what's led our education outcomes to decline. And I think that having a little bit more curiosity and a little bit less ideological rigidity would help us here.
Thank you. Okay, Aiden, you're next.
Yeah, real quick, could you repeat the question? Because there's a bunch of stuff going through my mind right now, and I feel like a lot of it's on education, but it's off track. So I just want to make sure I answer the question.
So Washington says it funds schools, but we know that districts are still cutting staff, relying on levies and reducing their programs. So what specific changes would you support to make the state funding formula match the real cost of running schools in rural and small districts?
Yeah. So when speaking to the budget constraints, when it comes to this, is it even the state constitution actually states that it is the paramount duty of the state to fund public education. And we used to have a larger percent of the total budget actually be allocated towards education, and that has since gone down since COVID, which to me is one of the most wild things. Is COVID-19 happens. And I don't want to get too distracted here, but one of the things that I've openly said is that being a student during the pandemic, if elected, I would be the only representative who can look a student in the eyes in Olympia and say, I know what it's like to lose 2 years of my education to a pandemic. And since that pandemic, we've cut the total percent that we spent on education. And that to me is wildly concerning because we're cutting the total percent that we're spending on it after they've lost years of education. And so I think that that's part of the issue why we're seeing such, I would say, abysmal results just across the board in our education. It seemed like we were on the up and up before COVID, and now it seems like we're just on a downward slope. And so the first thing I would do is I would work to increase the total percent that we spend on education. And again, I would really go against, as often as I absolutely can, against the unfunded mandates. Just across the board, they hurt our junior taxing districts, but especially when it comes to our school districts. I mean, there's so much that they rely on the state for, and the fact that the state is not meeting its legal and constitutional obligation is, frankly, in my opinion, shameful.
Thank you. Eric, this is the final question. You need it ready? You want me to read it again?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Washington says it funds schools, but we all know that districts are still cutting staff, relying on levies and reducing programs. What specific changes would you make to support state funding formula match the real cost of running schools in rural and small districts?
What change would I make? Well, since it's all tax revenue that we need to be generating to pay for this, we need to encourage businesses in our community and building homes and selling homes and living in homes and property tax and all of those things to really get the funding streams locally. I think there's a disconnect from the communities with some of the schools and this movement of the mission of OSPI toward a sort of what appears to be a centralized model of education. So I worry that disconnect is creating a separation zone between people interested in paying for schools and their drive to not want to pay for schools. I think if we get communities more active, we start to see them flourish. That will go a long way. Again, you'll see that trickle up effect when people start to have faith in their ability to provide for themselves. That they'll be. I'm sorry.
30 seconds.
I don't see a timer, so I'm just going by feel here. It's a tough problem because we've got a lot of students leaving the education system because, frankly, families are losing faith in how business is being done in Olympia, both at the legislative level and at the agency level with OSPI. But fix the funding. It's a tough problem because people are stretched thin. So
now we're coming to closing statements, and we're going to go in reverse order. And you will have 2 minutes. And Eric, we start with you.
All right. Well, first off, let me reiterate my thanks for having me. I sincerely appreciate it. As I'm a new candidate, this is my first time embarking on such an adventure and a mission. It's been really great to connect with the people that have invited me to forums, and even with, I would like to say my fellow candidates. I don't want to call them opponents because I think we share a lot of the same aspirations with what we do. We might have different vectors to get to it. We may have different ideas on what it's going to take there, and different levels of experience in what those things are. But I think all of them share a lot of value. We share a lot of value in getting that. And listening to them talk on this forum has been a wonderful experience for me. And I'm looking forward to doing more of it. As I've learned to sort of study legislation, the effects that it has on myself and my community, my parents. I think there's sort of a way that we need to bridge the gap between what's happening here today. Things like Adam, who serves in the House of Representatives what he knows and what the community knows, and get them more involved. And as a potential legislator, and I hope I do make it, I want to make sure that's occurring. Because what we can do is we can start to build what I like to time. Is that what you said?
No, 30 seconds.
Okay. We're building fishing floats. Fishing floats is a technique in Hawaii, and the Hawaiians use, where they anchor floats to the seabed, and it attracts algae, and it attracts microorganisms, and that then flourishes and allows smaller fish to feed, and then larger fish to feed. And then the Hawaiians go out and they harvest from these things, and there's stewardships over these small communities. And I think that's what we need to start building, and it happens right here in rooms like this and in our legislature. And I thank you for giving me the time, and I look forward to doing this again.
Thank you. And Aiden, you're next. 2 minutes.
All right. So there was a lot we talked about tonight, and I'm really glad to have the conversation. I'm really appreciative of the fact that everyone was willing to come out, people who were willing to listen online. And so I just want to thank everybody there. And furthermore, I do just want to thank the people that I'm running against, because, again, everybody here is quite knowledgeable on a great many things. And, of course, doing public service is never an easy thing, and so I'm always appreciative of my opponents. But, again, there was also a lot we didn't talk about. And so my only thing to everybody is that of the things we did talk about, I hope that you gained a greater understanding of where I stand on some issues, more insight into the person that I am. That way, when you know that if I do hopefully win in November, that when I sit in the seat of the legislature, maybe even if I didn't vote for him, that I can at least trust him with some power in government to do the right thing and to really legislate on behalf of the district. That was my number one goal tonight, so I hope that you can at least walk away with that. And so there's, again, to go back to the fact that there was so much that wasn't said. I want to have conversations with absolutely everybody. So, of course, once we're done tonight, please feel free to always approach me if you ever come by me, reach out to me however you can, because, again, you can only cover so much in a single forum, even in multiple forums. And sometimes there are just different issues that matter to people. And that's one of my number one things is, of course, there's the issues that I'm knowledgeable about that I want to fight on, but I also want to know what people's concerns are. And so, again, I just want to repeat, I thank you guys so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Well, I'll both keep it short, and so I know I'm now between you all and dinner, and reiterate the thanks that my opponents, my competitors shared with everybody. I think both Aiden and Eric have put it well, and I don't think that there are. I think one of the best things, genuinely, one of the best things about getting to do this, one of the best things about getting to talk to people, Democrat and Republican across the district, is you realize that the vast majority of people agree on far more than they disagree on. That there's a lot of work that we can do in the places where we do agree. The government isn't a static, sclerotic thing that just kind of is winnowing away. I think that we can make engaging in public service and engaging in local government something that people feel optimistic about. Certainly that's been the case for me and in my life. I had no expectation that I would ever run for this position. I was foolishly working on a piece of political advocacy, and I asked Theringer a question, and he said, he was telling me basically that I was wrong. And he's like, if you want to see how this place really works, you should go work down in Olympia as a legislative assistant. And that experience genuinely changed my life. It gave me an opportunity of seeing both the impact that you can have on people's lives as a public servant. And it gave me a little bit of taste for the types of change that you can make in the community too. I know that in this role, I'm not always right. I think that nobody ever is. It sounds like I have something to learn about at least one of the policies today, because I think I misunderstood the land transfer as a part of the land transfer question. But what I can promise that I will do is I will listen to everybody. I will be open to changing my mind. If you bring me something and I don't understand it, I'll try and learn it better. And that's what I've tried to do over the last 2 years. And if you send me back to Olympia, that's what I'll continue to do. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you all for coming, submitting your. In the beginning, we did manage to ask all but one of the questions from the live audience. We managed to ask all the questions for Zoom, and we have 8 from the pre-submit. So our question to you is, if we send you these 9 questions that we didn't have time for, will you send your answers back and we can share it on our website?
Yes.
Did you hear the question, Eric?
Yeah, sure. Send them over.
All right, thank you very much then. And thank you all for coming, and thank you all for coming.
Well, you know, 4 or 5 days. Yeah.
You get to go home for dinner, and you know what? We ended up right on time. It's 7:30.
Available on our website within the next day or two, hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you guys.
Is that on YouTube?
Yes, it goes to our YouTube, and there is a link.
Good job, Aiden. Good to see you.
Likewise. Feel like I was a bit more prepared now that I have at least one under my belt before I stepped in.
First one's